Okay, sorry. I thought I could get that all into the 10-minute video, but I'm too long-winded. I'm too invested in my own projects. So I'll just continue from where I left off. Uh, right. So this change project is it was set out into 3 years. And like I said, we've just reached the end of the second year, which was about creating philosophy statements and really examining together as a school in professional learning groups what we believe about assessment. I think as a teacher, I don't know how you all would see this, but assessment gets, as soon as you start talking about how you determine a child's grade in your class, you very quickly get into conversations about like the purpose of education and what we're doing here and what we're trying to create for kids. It becomes very, very very, very deeply rooted in your ideas about your craft. So it required a lot of discussion and professional reading. We brought in a guy called Ken O'Connor who has done a lot of writing from within and a lot of work with especially American schools on reframing what grading, especially grading practices look like. So that was meant to be a whole year of just, kind of soul searching a little bit. So the feedback I got at the end of the first semester was that people were really kind of sick of the soul searching and they wanted some action. So people were a little bit more um, they were a little bit more ready for the change than I had expected. It was what I realized was that some of the practices that were in place weren't what people wanted. Actually, they wanted some different practice. It's just that that's what was in place. That's the report card we had, for example, and that's how people did things. Um, so actually, we moved one of the we sort of sped up a little bit of the project, which we created a working group of teachers to create a draft of the middle school report card. So in this whole, you'll see in this sort of year two, the plan was to implement the new middle school report card. We started with the middle school report card because it has fewer implications for the transcript. It has no implications for the transcript. And so it's you can tinker in middle school a little more than you can in high school. High school, um, there are issues with storing grade data, historical grade data that are kind of things I had never really realized existed before, but they're big, massive things within the counseling office and the registrar's office. So it was just a lot easier to get some of those things, do some of the learning with the middle school report card. And then next school year, not this one coming, but the next one, we will create a new high school reporting practice. So what we learned in this kind of soul searching year, what I'd hoped people would come to was the realization that their own personal philosophy about how children learn and what feedback and assessment is for, that they would find their own contradictions, the way I had find contradictions with the way we were doing it as a school. So what we have now is a school philosophy statement. We have a list of practices, kind of common agreements on assessment that we're all going to follow, and we're going to start trialing those next year. And this is where my sustainability thing comes in, which is that I have a tendency to think, okay, we have all these practices in place. This is wonderful. People are just going to do this, right? But my experience tells me that they won't, and that's not really, they're not doing it. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they need sort of some constant reinforcement. Everyone's been in a school where there's a new initiative and a new change every year or every time the administrator changes or whatever. And so they don't always trust that it's for real, or that someone's going to talk about this again once it's been, once we've ticked the box, right? So this coming year is going to be hopefully, as we use the middle school report card and the new attitudes to learning that we have agreed on as a school, things like that. that we're going to need some constant reinforcement, and to go back again and revise and review what we're doing, to ask ourselves, is this, are we meeting the philosophy statements that we all wrote together, and are we achieving what we want to achieve? So yeah, so that's where we are. So school year 1920, we're about to start, and this is a part of a much longer journey than the cell phone journey, but I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that this is going to have a big impact for kids. So I'm sorry that I can't take any questions or do any clarifying, but I hope that this gives all of you some things to talk about in the classroom, maybe, or some ideas for your own projects. I wish you all the best in your month together, and in the school year ahead.